So let me start by introducing our guest and to say a little bit about why our guest is here. So just to frame this for those of you who may not know, um, I'm sure if you're on the call, you do know that Chicory Wealth is, our tagline is integrating money and meaning. So our whole focus as financial life planners and socially conscious wealth managers is to help people express their values fully and completely through the use of their money, that these things are interrelated, very interconnected. And one of the things we decided to start a couple of years ago now was an initiative called 1% for Social Justice, where we, as Chicory Wealth, contributes 1% of our top line revenue to typically 3 grantee partners selected for that particular year in support of their work on the front lines of social justice. Is part of our theory of change that supporting people that are doing that kind of work in the world really makes a difference. And so we decided to start to focus this way. And this year's theme was communication. Um, we have 3 grantee partners, and we have been having conversations with them, and they will be present at our upcoming Atlanta event on October 25th to also have conversations with the folks who are coming to that event. We have over 200 people coming. We're very excited. Um, but today's folks are Chicken and Egg Films, which we've actually partnered with now for several years. I forget, Jenny, how many, but it's been a few. We discovered you, or you discovered us, and we've been supporting you. Um, the focus of Chicken and Egg Films is to champion women and gender expansive documentary filmmakers whose storytelling drives understanding and action on some of the most urgent issues of our time. Breaking through with the use of story and narrative seems so important today, maybe more so than ever before. So through funding, mentorship, and access to industry leaders, Chicken and Egg helps filmmakers bring their stories to audiences that can spark real social change. And today we're honored to have with us Jenni Wolfson, the CEO of Chicken and Egg Films. Jenni has spent her career at the intersection of human rights and storytelling, from her years as a UN human rights investigator to leading this incredible organization. So Jenni is going to share with us some of her story and also some clips from some films that they have supported. And we're super excited to have you, Jenni. So thank you for taking the time to join us today.
Thank you so much, Maggie, and to everyone at Chicory Wealth. This is such a treat to spend some time with you all, and I look forward to the conversation also that will ensue. I can't see you all, so I'm going to assume you're really engaged and present and not asleep on your armchairs at home or wherever you are. But, joining me today also, we have Amber Sassy, our fabulous Director of Development, and we are just so grateful. Oh, yay, Amber, to be part of your 1% program. And truly, your commitment to socially responsible investing is not only about where capital flows, but it is about values and action. And we have so much admiration for that. I originally gave the talk that I'm about to give in a more abridged version at the International Film Festival and Forum on Human Rights in Geneva, which is an incredible convening of filmmakers, advocates, who are really committed to, using stories to make change. But I've reworked it here because, we know the Chicory Wealth community shares the same belief that, where we invest, whether it's our money or our time or imagination, can shape a more just and connected world. So with that in mind, I invite us to begin by taking one deep breath together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a reminder that we need to breathe. Not just we as people, but we as investors, philanthropists, and change makers, because let's face it, the challenges in front of us, they are weighty and unprecedented. And I believe that they really demand a collective response. And to quote Toni Morrison, times like these are precisely the time when artists go to work. There is no time for despair, no place for self-pity, no need for silence, no room for fear. We speak, we write, we do language. And I'll add that this is also the time when investors go to work too, choosing not only to generate returns, but to invest in justice, empathy, and cultural change. And so at Chicken and Egg, we see these stories as impact investments, vehicles of return in the form of understanding, action, and hope. A little bit about me. I grew up in Scotland, in case you're wondering about the funky accent, and it's a small country full of imagination, myths, and folklore, where the national animal is a unicorn, and we genuinely believe in the Loch Ness Monster. I was also raised in a tight-knit community that taught me the power of belonging and the importance of standing up for others, because people didn't always stand up for us. And those early experiences, this sort of mix of wonder and mysticism and awareness, really set me on a path towards social justice and human rights. I worked at the UN for 12 years. Here you see the UN in Geneva for the Committee on the Rights of the Child. I was in Geneva. I was a human rights investigator in Haiti and in Rwanda after the genocide, a humanitarian worker in Sri Lanka. And that's probably 5% of my ID cards. And I listened to testimonies every day. I documented, I reported, I wrote 58-page reports with 41 addendums. But I realized that just because a meeting or report happens, that doesn't mean that powerful people are going to take action. Like, facts alone are not enough. And so what changed me the most were the stories. Sitting in living rooms, hearing survivors share their truth, I learned that stories, not only numbers, foster connection, nurture empathy, and open pathways to action. And so that realization eventually led me to my current work at Chicken and Egg Films. And our filmmakers are on the front lines of social change. And I believe that the power of their stories lies in 3 principles. The first, intimacy, the ability to see through another's eyes to understand the human story behind the issue. The second one, proximity, being embedded close to the communities most affected, telling stories with authenticity. And the third is agency, giving audiences not only information, but pathways to act. Films are just one piece of the larger fight for justice, but they're so powerful and uniquely so because they reach us on an emotional level that reports and news stories rarely do. And that's why so many activists, artists, and educators, they reach for the camera to shed light on urgent issues. I felt that power myself. When I was pregnant, a documentary moved me so much that I changed my birth plan and I had a home birth. And it reminded me that the right story can open our hearts first and then our minds. Films that move us emotionally, move us to act through intimacy, proximity, and agency. And when films create impact campaigns that are grounded in those principles, these films can really help channel individual action into real collective movements. So I want to share 3 gorgeous films of examples that I believe embody each of these pillars perfectly. Let's start with intimacy. Black Box Diaries, which was nominated for an Oscar last year. I sat in the audience, they didn't win. Follows journalist Shiori Ito as she investigates her own rape and improbable attempts to prosecute her high-profile offender in Japan. It is as gripping as a political thriller, yet it's a deeply personal film. So let's watch the trailer.
I have the chance to talk about what happened to me. I'm scared, but all I want to do is talk about the truth. 私自身が全く記憶にないので。起きた時の記憶ははっきりしてます。Many people already witnessed what kind of negative reaction I've got.
証拠がないため厳しいですよね。
Our justice system's not working. Without these recordings, no one would believe what I heard. 警察にも知り合いが安倍総理とかそういう方とも接しているので、
組織の上の方から逮捕するのやめろって。
これからの伊藤さんの将来も危うくなっちゃうんですよ。
動いたちょっと。For me, being silent wasn't an option. 何やってんだ! I have to be speaking up. I'm just a journalist who experienced this.
捜査の公正性、まさにブラックボックス。
即興かもしれない。
There's no guarantee for my life.
これ人生かかってますよ。
盗聴器発見器ありますか? Everywhere people start speaking up.
しおりさんは時代の申し子。しおりさんじゃないですか。ぜひ頑張ってね。頑張ってください。
I'm still here.
Okay, sorry about the sound lags there, Amber. If you're able to go straight to the Google Drive folder where they're downloaded for the next two, I think that might fix the problem.
I think we get the message though, Jenny, just FYI.
Yeah, and we can share the trailers
Yeah.
with you as well.
Yeah.
But Shari's film, takes the shame that's too often pushed onto a survivor and it turns it back on the perpetrators themselves. In sharing her own story with the world, giving audiences the power to see through her eyes, it puts tremendous power in her hands. And while she's also empowering other stories, other survivors who identify with her story, and so many people come up to her at screenings and share their story as a result of seeing her bravery. And so the intimacy of this film is now shifting global conversations on gender-based violence, including screenings of the film in international halls of power like the UN and the European Parliament. And I feel like it also does what film does so beautifully, which is it's evergreen, right? This film will be watched in 1 year, in 3 years, in 5 years. Sadly, it will stay relevant for too long. The second principle is proximity. And that's Black Snow, which follows Natalia, a citizen journalist in Siberia, documenting the health impacts of open coal mining on her community, and also focused on her daughter who developed serious kidney problems. The filmmaker, Aline Simon, was embedded alongside her. She has deep family ties to the region. She's got years of work inside Siberia. And I'm going to show a clip that shows the power of a film that's made by a filmmaker who lives and works close to the issue.
Вот из-под земли идет такое вот. Рассказал охранник правду, что здесь горит, и тут пласт горит, тут пласт горит. Его уволили с работы за это. Так вот, нельзя правду говорить.
Вот, 220. 220? Вот, 2, 1,5. О, 309.
Так уже здесь взрывоопасно.
Я пошел.
Давай-ка охранника позовем.
Давайте.
Мы, короче, здесь замерили метан. Сейчас еще раз замер сделает. Я думаю, что нужно об этом, наверное, сообщать. Я же говорила, что она найдет эти волосы. Про 4,5 он взрывоопасен. Что делать? Говорить начальству, потому что страшно, конечно. Ой.
Доча, надо домой чистить.
Ты...
Okay, sorry about the sound there again. You're sort of getting 50% of the clip. You're getting the sense, which is basically, you know, the human cost of coal. What's been incredible about this film is it's mobilized scientists, NGOs, and even Erin Brockovich in a campaign to end open coal pit mining. And so this film creates proximity because even across great distances, our biggest struggles, climate change being one of them, extractive industries, they're all interconnected. And in a world where extractive forces gain power by distancing us from each other, films can bring us back into proximity. Finally, agency. The film Pay or Die follows American families navigating the impossible cost of insulin. Directors Rachel Dyer and Scott Rudderman capture not just the crisis, but most importantly, the possibility for change. Nicole Smith Holt, who lost her son Alec, as you will see in the clip, successfully led a grassroots push for the passage of Alec's Law in Minnesota, guaranteeing emergency access to insulin. All right, here we go. Good luck with this trailer.
I remember every single day. I have a hard time remembering the day of the funeral.
Insulin in 2019 goes to almost $300, over a 1,000% price increase.
My son died because he struggled to afford the one medicine created to save his life.
Joshua! Joshua! Jesse! Jesse! Justice for Alex!
We got to change the system.
It's such a heartbreaking film. It's, you know, so many young people dying at the age of 26, you know, when they come off their parents' health insurance and they are rationing their insulin. And it's a really powerful film, and it's agency and action because the film equips audiences with tools for local advocacy, from writing their legislators to joining grassroots campaigns. And for investors, it's a reminder that investment choices, like policy choices, can unlock agency even in systems that feel entrenched. And so this, you know, these are some of examples of the raw power of films. Reports can tell us what's happening, but films put the human into human rights, and they help us really envision a better future and show us pathways to get there. And the impact is both tangible, laws passed, screenings in the halls of power, and intangible, the things that are harder to measure, a shift in empathy, a spark of courage, a decision to live your life with more agency. And so the way impact investors talk about social return, that's the same way I feel about documentary films. They deliver dividends of empathy, action, and cultural transformation. And so by supporting Chicken and Egg through Chicory Wealth's 1% program, you're not just funding art, but you're funding measurable social change. You are helping filmmakers like these reach broader, more influential audiences, younger audiences, innovate with impact campaigns, and really seek cultural transformation. You can almost think of it as a portfolio of social change. Every film an asset, every screening a dividend, every impact campaign a return on investment in humanity. And so let's end where we began before we head into the Q&A with one deep breath together. Thank you. Maggie, should people turn their cameras back on for the Q&A, or do you
Well,
keep...
I mean, it's their choice. We will be using this, so if you want to turn your camera back on and you don't mind being a face of Chicory Wealth in perpetuity, by all means do it. And if that's the least bit uncomfortable for you, feel free to stay with your cameras off, but do put your questions in in the chat, and I'll start with a few for you, Jenny, just to kick us off here.
Yeah. And I'll ask Amber to come on camera, and she might
Sure.
answer some questions as well. Thank you, Amber.
Yes. So I have a few questions. One of them is, I've been tracking you guys for a while, and in the past, you've been gracious enough to give us access to some screenings. I remember a few years ago, you were in support of a film about the Indigo Girls, which had particular resonance for some of us here in Atlanta. But I'm just wondering about how these films are so impactful. I mean, the ones I have watched are just so incredibly powerful. And I can see just by the trailers of these, I want to see them. How does one gain access to these when they are out? How do you find these films? How do you support screenings of these films? Those sorts of questions to help with whatever perhaps campaigns they might be running or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that's such a great critical question, Maggie. And there are many different ways to see films like these, and some ways that are quite hard, actually. They're one of the things that we talk a lot about in our industry is the consolidation of the streaming platforms. And in my 12 years at Chicken and Egg Films, for example, I'm seeing massive changes in how people like Netflix and others are curating what they show, right? We're seeing a big increase in biopics and music, documentaries and sports and true crime. And we're seeing less and less important independent filmmakers. And I think we're underestimating our audiences, because studies have shown in documentary film that there are tens of millions of people out there that want to see these films and are asking the same question, where can I see them? So some of them are on the streaming platforms like, Netflix and Amazon and Apple and Nat Geo, and that's great. And that can reach a lot of people. Many of them are on public television, POV and others. But under Trump, I mean, he has been decimating government funding to public media. And so there's definitely a crisis there in getting these films shown on public media. And there's some really interesting new digital platforms, such as like Kinema and Jolt, that are now programming these films. And many of us in the film industry are talking about other possible new platforms and ways to show the film. There's film festivals, of course, and there are great ways to tap into local communities. There's like local, regional, international, national film festivals. And then, of course, there's organizations like Chicken and Egg Films. As you said, we share private links to our films. Twice a year, we send invitations to films, and we're always recommending good films to see, because part of the issue is there's no shortage of films to see. So you're like, how do I know which ones are good? Which ones shall I watch? And so partnering with an organization like Chicken and Egg, I think you sort of get a trusted curation of like, these are films that, we support, and not just important films, but filmmakers who are telling films with care, right? When you see filmmakers telling films about people who've been raped or who have lost their homes or who are getting cancer because of open coal pit mining and kidney problems, you need to really kind of respect the people in the films from a safety, security, mental health perspective. And so that's another thing you get, I think, in partnering with someone like Chicken and Egg, is you're seeing the right kinds of films that do good and don't do harm.
Right. Aren't just simply exploitative of whatever the topic is. Yeah. Yeah. Rob asked the question, have you considered or, branching into supporting podcasts?
Oh, our director of communications would just love to see that question. That is actually the hope, is that we do podcasts with our directors, with our staff, with, filmmakers talking about their films, talking about the industry. So we're looking into, seeing what it would take to make that investment. It's actually quite time intensive to do podcasts. And one of the most important things, of course, is having a budget for marketing, because if you build it, they don't necessarily come. You have to also get the word out there. But we would love to be doing podcasts to be able to sort of take people more behind the scenes because, you know, I spent a lot of time with Shiori, you know, who told the story in Japan, and just hearing her talk about the film and what it took to make the film and how she was ostracized. She hasn't been able to show the film in Japan. She's been vilified in Japan, and lawyers have gone after her. And, you know, so these are really interesting things to think about that you wouldn't necessarily fully get just in watching a film. So I love that question, Rob. Thank you.
Speaking of budgets, what does it cost to create some of these films? I mean, what's the range? I'm just curious. Like, I don't even really know. Could easily find out, but I haven't actually looked to see what your own budget is at Chicken and Egg. And I know you're not making the films; you're supporting the films, and they're using other sources to raise the funds. But I'm just curious.
Exactly. We support about 60 new films a year. And at any one time, we might have 170 films in production because this is the thing that might scare new people to film. They're like, but it takes a long time to make a film. And how will it reach the audience? And it's expensive. So I'm about to answer your question on the cost of making a film. But again, you know, I think it's what I often say is these films are evergreen. People watch these films, you know, they're, you know, a sort of a moment in time, but they're also often correcting history and they're showing us a new way of imagining the future. And people watch films, you know, decades, a century later. You know, when I think of Paris is Burning that Chicken and Egg supported, that is still a film that gets watched and rewatched.
Really, you supported Paris is Burning? Wow.
Yeah, Jenni Livingston.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so the cost of a film can range from, the range is huge. It can go from, you know, $80,000 to $3 million. But I would say most films are sort of somewhere between $200,000 and 1.2 million. And most of them may be around, and filmmakers nowadays are trying to make them cheaper because the industry is so hard to get funding for filmmakers. So most of them, I would say, are sort of somewhere between, like, you know, 200 and $800,000, but it really depends. If your film has animation, that is really expensive. If your film has archival, are you traveling to different countries? Are you paying for mental health and safety and security, you know, protocols? If you're making a film in Atlanta about your local community and it doesn't have those things, you can make a much more, you know, economical film. So it really depends what kind of film you're making, how long it takes to make. And one of the things I love that one of our filmmakers said, you know, recently when I was on a panel with her, someone said, you know, other than money, like, what do you need as a filmmaker? And she said, we need time, right? We are telling stories of people over time, and people don't change in 6 months, in 1 year. And so we need the gift of time to allow the stories and the situations to unfold, right? You're a documentary filmmaker. You don't know what your ending is. You might not even know what your full story is. And so you need to be able to follow that story as it changes and evolves, and to have some sort of flexibility in your funding, but also in the time that you can give to making that film. And you know, some of our films can take 1 or 2 years, but some of them can take 5 years or 8 years before they come out, and they take the time that they take. And many filmmakers, you know, have other part-time jobs to sustain themselves. So it might be a financial reason it takes a long time, or it might be that your story is still unfolding and, you know, like in Shiori's case, you know, going through the court system, you know, wanting to show the outcome of the court case. You can't wrap that up neatly, you know, in a few months.
What is the, obviously you support a lot of filmmakers and you said you could have many going on at the same time. I'm assuming the filmmakers apply to you for grants. Is that what's the structure look like? How many how many folks apply versus how many you can actually support? How fertile a ground is this, I guess is what I'm asking in terms of that.
So great question. So a reminder that we are global and we have different programs targeted at different stages of a filmmaker's career and filmmaking. So we have like a research and development program that is supported by Netflix, where we're coming in right at the beginning. And that is through an open call. Anyone can apply from around the world. Our last open call, we had 360 applications, I think, and we supported 29 films. And then we have another program that is for first and second time filmmakers that is also global. We choose 10 film projects out of that globally, and we got 650 applications. So it's easier to get into Harvard than it is to get funding from Chicken and Egg Films. Sundance is even more. I mean, to get into the Sundance Film Festival, they program 180 films and they get 18,000 applications for those 180 slots. So it's really competitive. We also have one program that is through nomination. So we're sort of more nominating filmmakers because the open calls are pretty time consuming, as you can imagine. We always have at least 2 or 3 people reviewing each application. And we're really trying to curate a very diverse slate of filmmakers because really sort of at the core of Chicken and Egg isn't just that we believe in the stories that get told, but that we think it's really important who gets to tell the story. So if we don't see a diversity of storytellers, then we're not going to see stories that reflect the full complexity of humanity out there. So we're looking to support filmmakers from, different class, race, age, gender, sexual orientation, religion, nationality, and also different filmmaking styles. We support investigative journalistic films, personal narratives, archival films. So we're really looking for a sort of what are the best stories by, the best filmmakers in this moment.
Rob asked another question here. How frequently do your filmmakers need to incentivize or pay their key clients or storytellers in order to get them to tell the story? His nonprofit's considering that to get people experience homelessness, tell their tragic but moving stories.
That is such a great question. We run labs also. We have year-long programs and we run labs and we bring in different cinematographers and editors and producers to help our filmmakers. And we always have a session on sort of ethics of storytelling. And this question always comes up. Like I make money from this film, or I'm, out there and I'm telling stories about people that have so little and that need help. And, do I pay them? Do I help them? And there's very different opinions on this. There are some people that are very sort of journalistic. No, you mustn't interfere in the life of your protagonist in any way. And most of the people in the films that we support are, obviously all willingly telling their story with, and we talk a lot about informed consent, making sure they know what are the implications of having your story out there. Some people pay their protagonists, not very many people. Some people might pay them in sort of helping them in other ways, helping their kids with education or bringing them supplies for something. And some filmmakers share the proceeds of their film if they make money. A lot of documentaries don't make any money, but I don't think this is a secret. I hope it's not a secret. So, Chatham House for Chicory Wealth. But one of our filmmakers recently made a stunning film called Your Perfect Neighbor. The Perfect Neighbor, My Perfect Neighbor, The Perfect Neighbor in there somewhere. And it's on Netflix. And you'll be hearing a lot about it because I think she has a good chance of being shortlisted for an Academy Award. And she sold that film for $5 million to Netflix, which is the exception, not the rule. And she is given the entire amount of money to the family who lost their mother due to gun violence and racism. And, so we see the whole gamut of how people interact with their protagonists, and some don't give them anything. And, it's very healing, of course, to tell your story and to see how it impacts, other people. But there is no sort of industry standard.
Right. So
you have to do, I think, what feels right to you and what keeps your story in its sort of authenticity.
Sure. This is probably a completely unfair question, but I'm curious because you've been doing this a while. Are there particular films that you were the Chicken and Egg supported that you just think, oh, that film, it just changed me, or it really had an impact on you, or oh, this was just one of my, you if you've not seen this, you really must see this. I know there's so many,
Yes.
so I'm putting you on the spot, but I'm curious.
Oh my goodness. There's so many. And again, what always fascinates me when we screen and we come to deliberate with the group about which films we should choose, how widely our views and perspectives differ,
Sure.
right? Art is subjective. The book you love, the film you see.
Right.
But one film that is very meant a lot to me was a film called On Her Shoulders by Alexandria Bombach, who actually made the Indigo Girls
Oh,
film, because On Her Shoulders follows, um, the story of the Yazidi women who were, sex trafficked. But it's a film that really makes you think about what does it mean to make someone tell their story and then retell their story. And yet, if you have a story that you know is going to change and move other people? Do you have an obligation to tell it and share it? But what is the personal cost of telling and retelling your own story that is a trauma in and of itself? And so it's a beautiful film. I love that film. And a current film that I really love that is also on Netflix, that I also hope will get onto the Oscar shortlist is called Songs from the Hole. And that is a film that is, she calls it like a visual music album. And it's a film about redemption and forgiveness, about a man who kills someone when he's young, goes to prison, ends up meeting the person who killed his brother in prison. He gets put in solitary confinement. He writes this music album in his head that becomes the soundtrack to the film. Contessa Gales is the director, and it's a really original, creative film that makes you think about the criminal justice system in a new way, that makes you think about forgiveness and redemption. And also it's just, it's so artistic. So it makes you realize like, oh, documentary films, it's not like eating your vegetables.
yes, right.
Documentary films nowadays, it's no longer the sort of traditional talking head, 60 minutes. These are artists who are also advocates. And that power of the two together, really, for me, that film embodies that dual power.
Yeah, I mean, that is I love documentary film. And as some of these, I'm thinking about if I saw the trailer, I mean, to be frank, I'd have to think, can I bear to watch this? Because these stories some of them are so powerful and so
Yeah.
poignant and so emotional. It's not exactly like eating your vegetables, but it is like you have to be, I think that to open yourself to other people's stories this way, and I mean, so much more so if you're the filmmaker, the amount of courage it takes to be with that. I mean,
Yeah.
but I'm talking to someone who was a witness to God knows what, Jenni. So you perhaps are like, well, yes, of course.
Yes, and I also think that that's why I love film is because there's hope in these films. It's sort of
Yeah.
telling a story so that it doesn't happen again. And it's often like, Songs from the Hole, it's showing you how something can turn into something very different. And not all our films are so heavy. And, this is not a film we supported, but it's a filmmaker we've supported, Coexistence My Ass, and is a film about an Israeli comedian who grew up in an Israeli-Palestinian settlement sort of community in Israel. And she uses comedy to talk about the conflict. And you can't imagine that you watch a film where you're going to laugh about, Israel,
Yeah.
Palestine, but you are laughing. And at the same time, she is opening hearts and minds to different perspectives. So not all of her films are,
Cool.
doom and gloom. And even that, like I said, the doom and gloom ones, they often show you a path forward,
Yeah.
which is, I think, so important.
So powerful. Yeah, extremely powerful. I was thinking that, what would be cool, I mean, we can take this offline, but I would love for us to be in communication with you where, our communications director who's off today, Liv Gagnon, who you've been in touch with, we do a regular monthly newsletter, and she'll always put in something about what we're reading. But it would be lovely to get information from you about what we should be watching, to the extent that things are coming out where we might have access to them.
Yes.
Just
Well,
to be able to promote them.
Yes, well, I love that you asked me that, because you're leading me to the final point I wanted to make, was like ways to stay connected if today sparked your interest. One is to join our mailing list, and I think Amber's going to put in the chat, our website. And in our, newsletter, we share films all the time. And for our donors, we have a different newsletter where we share, other kinds of films and special events and ways to join us. The second way to stay connected, so you took the words out of my mouth, which is email Amber, and she'll put her email in the chat also if you want to see my top 6 documentaries right now to stream, some of which we showed you today. And then, of course, a third option for those of you who are interested is, we are always so happy to do a one-on-one conversation where we can tell you more about Chicken and Egg. We're fortunate to also have some of the Chicory Wealth members in our nest as direct supporters of the organization. Of course, there's no obligation, but we love that, to get, more involved and to find ways to match, your interest and our interest if you're doing things outside of Chicory Wealth philanthropically. We're a nonprofit, and Maggie, to answer your question, our budget's about 5.6 million a year, and 70% of our funding comes from major giving from individuals and family foundations. That has really been the sweet spot of Chicken and Egg Films over the last 20 years, supporting over 500 filmmakers.
It's fantastic. We've done, I don't know. I know Boycott, but I don't know if you guys were involved in the filmmaking of that film that was about, that was done by Just Vision. I don't know if that was
We have supported Julia Bacha's films. She's a Brazilian filmmaker, and I think we supported Boycott. Don't quote me, but I'm pretty sure that was one of the films. But certainly we supported a couple of her films.
We did a showing of that, and I could imagine wanting to do a showing of some things or something, and gather a group, locally to watch, because I think there's something very powerful too about watching some of these in a gathering of people who want to learn about something.
For sure. And our board president, Nikisa Cooper, is based in Atlanta. She's also a film producer. She produced the film Pariah. Talk about evergreen. A lot of people still watch and talk about Pariah with Dee Reese. She was the producer in that. So we also have someone locally, on the ground, and we probably have filmmakers in Atlanta as well, and other cities. But yes, we would love that.
That would be great. Find ways to continue to collaborate with you. There's just something about cutting through, and the story, the storytelling, and how important this is. It just, it's so impactful. So
Amber, is there anything you want to add that I haven't covered?
I would just say that Nikisa, our on-the-ground presence in Atlanta, is joining for the upcoming Chicory Wealth event. So if you see her, say hi. I'll have her on the lookout for everyone. And we'll have a table that has some collateral and some more information about our work, as well as some goodies and merch for everyone to take home that we're shipping down to Atlanta.
Swag.
You want a beanie or a hat, get over there.
Right. Come early, act quickly. The swag goes fast at our event. So that's great. Thank you, Amber. I appreciate
it. It is fun to have a fun name, Chicken and Egg Films. It's like, which came first, right? If you don't have any money, how do you shoot your trailer? If you don't have a trailer, how do you raise money?
Right.
So that is where the chicken and egg.
Oh, that's where it comes from. That's lovely. That's great.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Well, before we close, I just want to give anyone else an opportunity. If you have any other questions, put them in the chat. If you happen to have a question for me, I'll give you a couple minutes. If you have anything pressing, feel free to ask. I'll wait for just a second. And if we don't have anything, we will sign off. But I certainly appreciate you guys taking the time. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for doing the work you do in the world. It's so important, especially I mean, I say especially now, but I feel like I've been saying especially now for like 20 years. So perhaps it's just the nature of things. It does feel especially now, though, doesn't it? Maybe it's just always so.
It does. I mean, there's so much disinformation and silencing of independent
Oh,
voices.
Lord. Yeah.
But thank you so much, Chicory Wealth. Really, we are so grateful to all of you for what you do and putting your money where your mouth is. I don't know if that's the right expression, but
it is. Thank you. Thank you.